Hello, I'm Anthony Marks, a solution architect with Plative. I'm here today to discuss the capabilities of FullClarity. So to sign into FullClarity, you use the NetSuite sign-in. So if you're already a NetSuite user, you would go in just like you would for any NetSuite application for the general ERP. You would, of course, have your standard landing page, which I'm sure most are used to, which has your KPIs. Of course, you would have a list of all your possible sign-ins, and you'll be familiar with our landing page where you have your reminders on the left to manage by exception, which of course is completely customizable. You'll also have all the other elements like key performance indicators with, as you can see, there's a hyperlink on this particular element. You can drill down the costs that make that up. So it's completely interactive and real time. Got to point out that NetSuite, everything happens in real time. You'll also have your KPI meters. All of those elements are associated with it. FullClarity is loaded as a bundle. It is built in the NetSuite platform. It's not an integration at all. You will have your own FullClarity tab on the top of the form from where you can access things like reports, project financials, specifically retainage, timelines, and of course the portal I mentioned earlier. That's where you would put your drawings and other documents. You can configure that so you access things in the way you need it to be accessed. Let's start with creating a project. The project is the record that ties all the construction job details together, both on an accounts receivable and accounts payable side and execution side. And every project would always start with the customer, whether you started from the customer record like it's available here, where you can create a project using the button at the top of the form, or you create a project on its own. The great thing about coming from here is it pre-populates all the addresses and contact information directly, as opposed to having it enter it or refer to it. We have all the information pertaining to a project that you're used to seeing within NetSuite, all the standard customer info and structural information like subsidiary setups, all those things are here, just like you're used to seeing. You got your communication, customer details, whether in this particular case is where the leads came from. And of course, you have your customer tab. As you can see under the sales tab, we have projects. We can also create a new project from here. All those things are available. And you can see you also have your tabs managing all things. We're looking at the project tab, you have your opportunities that can be listed here, all things that we're used to seeing and navigating through NetSuite. If we take a look at an actual project record, as you can see, very similar layout where you have your buttons across the top so you can trigger transactions directly from the project record when the need arises. Things to keep in mind that I'd like to call out are create a variation, which is to create a change order. Change order turns into an estimate, which we'll talk about a little later. Creating a claim, so driving your accounts receivable side, and creating lot projects, which is really a sub project we talked about earlier. You can create it directly from here, assuming that this is your parent level project, or like we refer to, your site project. And then you also have a tab to create a specific claim on retainage and trigger retainage. Let's take a look at some of these tabs down below. We have the numbers tab, which is really a summary of the project from a financial transaction standpoint. Gives you the in-flight status, future elements coming in, things like invoices, committed costs are here, as well as general costs. We look at the billing type, and we talked about billing types being progress billing, which is based on percent complete, stage billing, which is milestones determined by the schedule of values. And then, of course, you can do time and material, which is your cost plus margin. And then you have drawdown projects can be managed, so where you're drawing down on a loan. And then you have the use of internal and capital projects, which is really designed for managing projects that you have within your organization, not necessarily customer facing. And that's one of the things a lot of people miss, that there's an opportunity to also have the same kind of vigilance in implementing internal projects as you would on a customer-based project. The next tab we can take a look at is our configuration tab. The configuration tab really sets the details at the project level. So from a hierarchical standpoint at the project level, as opposed to at the transaction level. It has the default margin and other project specific drivers. We also have our estimating tab. The estimating tab has your estimates. So you would create individual estimates for every project based on what portion of the project you are controlling on an individualized basis, not necessarily for a specific vendor, but for a specific timeline or element within a project schedule. So this is what an estimate would look like, where you would have your different cost categories and stages. You would then have what you've estimated a project will complete for these various stages. You can, of course, make changes as you need here. You can override these numbers so you can edit in line if you're given those permissions. That's what an estimate has. So we have some sales estimates, which are your original proposal. We have project budget estimates based on the sales estimate. And then you have your forecast where we perform all the project transactions, things like purchase orders, et cetera. The other thing we have here is bid requests using native NetSuite RFQ request for quote functionality. You're able to create bids for specific portions of jobs within the estimate. So you could send out a bid, have a customer respond to that, and then the bid would be attached to a particular step in the project or construction element, at which time you could trigger a purchase order for that. And like I said, it uses the standard NetSuite RFQ process, which takes advantage of the partner portal where vendors can submit their bids. You can send emails to a customer. They can respond through the vendor portal. They can put their bids in there. They can look at declining if necessary. They can add inclusions, exclusions. They can attach files, and they would respond at the line level item to whatever you put in the bid, which would be akin to a purchase order. The next tab we should take a look at is the retainage tab. The retainage tab sets the retainage that your customer would be expected to hold back from construction. So once you're finished construction, a certain percentage of retainage. In this particular case, we have a 5% retainage. That would be the holdback that the customer would have on your services that would be collected at a later date, supporting things like warranties, et cetera. And of course, we have the same thing on our vendors. So our suppliers, we can also hold a retainage from them, and that would be managed through the process as needed. Finally, we have our revenue recognition. So NetSuite revenue recognition, which is off the FullClarity tab in project financials, it has full NetSuite revenue recognition functionality. You can manage the rev plan, your approach, and it uses all native NetSuite functionality. Here are some reports worth taking a look at. If you look at under the numbers tab, you'll see that there is a sub tab for reports, and these are standard reports, and all reports can be customized within FullClarity right now. You also have the full suite of NetSuite reports that you're used to seeing that come preloaded. Really a suite success approach to reporting. The idea is that we're not programming, we're configuring. So what do you want to take advantage of? We'll set that up for you. We then customize it based on what you need these things to look like. We have job costing reports, costing types, asset type, all things associated with the job. We'll have a cash flow report. We have payable retainage balances, so you can keep track of what you've billed from a retainage perspective and what still needs to be billed. And we also have receivables retainage, so payables and receivables. We will take a look at two reports that are really important. One of the key benefits of having your construction management software or functionality within NetSuite is that we're able to track all elements that affect profitability of a project. It's all collected under a project record, so you know what your costs are, what your revenues are. You can have other cost elements like labor associated with it. You can even take advantage of NetSuite's workforce management. All those things are available. And even if you wanted to add additional elements that would support your construction business, like field service management, it would be another add-on. So over here, we have our cash flow report. So you can forecast cash flow by period. You can change the timing. So we would start off with your forecasted costs. You can then determine how you want to spread those out over a period. We're doing 1 year now. You can, of course, change that to a 2-year timeline if you wanted to, and then you can spread out your costs manually, and you'd be able to monitor them at that level, basically creating your forecasted budget, and then your actuals would be measured against that. The next report we have is your job costing report. So, by project, the consolidating costs and understanding your project evolution, really seeing where things are hitting. So you can take a look at your original budget. You can look at change orders that are involved in there. You got your change orders, what your adjusted budget looks like. and then what your actuals are and what's been committed, and then the total commitments. And then you can have your various variance reports as well. And you can, of course, drill down here as you build and add elements to your job costing report. You can open up and look at the details of a job. Next up, we're going to look at estimating. We will be looking at how to create the building blocks of a project. And really, it starts with an estimate. So you create individual estimates, and you also have your ability to collect estimates. So when you're building up to creating a contract, which we'll do in a little while, you'll be able to bring all the estimates together for that contract. Here is your estimate. So it includes detail lines for work package locations, categories, and items for job costing reporting. Then it looks at phases, asset types, cost categories are all things you add to an estimate. You can also have your inventory items. You'll see that there's a tab on the top. So if anything consumes things you have in stock, because it is native NetSuite, it takes advantage of all the design and build elements from an item creation standpoint. So even though you have all your service items, you of course have access to your standard inventory items. Estimates can be imported, created as templates. They are generated for the projects and sub-project records. All those things are available. And of course, you can make changes on estimates as you need. You can change things like your contingency for an estimate. You can add margin. All those things are available. The next element, and we'll go back to our project record, is of course creating a variance. You create a variation very much like you would create an estimate, because in reality it is that, but it is a change order as far as a contract is concerned. So you would set things up, you would look at the various stages that the change order would take effect on, and then it would be available. As you can see, we have a change order listed in our estimate here. We have a store build. We have a few estimates that we've pulled together. Like I mentioned earlier, you go into estimate collection, and that's really where you group all the estimates into a package to create the budget. And then together with the contract pricing, so we have all our cost estimates in place. We then have our pricing elements. We make up a contract. So estimates all get wrapped up and create a contract. So from the job record, you click create a contract, and it'll take out what you've put into your estimate collections all together to create the contract. So it's an amalgamation of all your sales order estimates, all your bids to your customers, all those elements are included. You can, of course, just like anything else in NetSuite, you can always add files that are specific to a contract. So it could be NDAs, elements like that can be added. And of course, we have our standard buttons across the top with our worksheet view, which we'll take a look at. And if you ever make any changes to the contract, like you add another change order to it or something, you can update the contract and then redeploy that to your customer. You then manage projects using the contract view, where you can take you can take a look at what was issued, what was sent for bid, what you've paid or what you've planned on paying. All those elements are included in the worksheet. So you have a tabular view for a particular contract, which encompasses all the variables associated with the project. So once a contract has been created and it's time to launch a project, everything starts again from the project record, and you start managing a project based on the forecast. The forecasts are the nuggets that make up a project. So once you have all your estimates created for a project, you then start managing at the forecast level of a project. As you can see, it is the evolution of your budgets, and it's the forecast. And this is what a forecast record looks like. Forecasts can be built from templates. All those elements are available to you. Always the CSV is available with NetSuite and other methods to bring data in. From an estimate is where you can launch a lot of the transactions. So when you right click, you can modify lines, you can change a lot of things here. You can add a line, so augment your project plan. You have a high level project. You then can launch your purchase orders from a project by right clicking on one of the elements. And typically what you want to do is you want to issue a purchase order directly from within a project, because that allows you to take all the information that's already contained in the project record to make sure that when you do receive the elements and you trigger the accounts payable process, it's all triggered to that project. Even though you can also create a purchase order organically, it is always best to use the purchase order functionality within the estimate. If you've set up a vendor for a particular element of a nest forecast, you can of course trigger a purchase order directly from there as well. So now, once again, we want to take a look at the whole picture of a project. That's when our Gantt charts and those elements come in. So we're going to take a look at the timeline so we can see the whole picture. So from a job record, like we mentioned earlier, that's where everything starts. You have your timeline tab, and you have a couple of options here. First of all, this is where you set up your roles for a particular project. So if we take a look at a role, pretty straightforward setup, what the role name is, who the employee is for this particular project and which project it corresponds to. So we can track all the crews and functionality resources that we need for a particular project. You also take a look at your timeline Gantt. As you can see, the timeline or the Gantt chart is loaded as a template. So it can be reused. Of course, you can set up specific ones just for a particular project, but there is the option to bring in things. And in a lot of cases, timelines are almost, to a certain extent, cookie cuttered. So it's better to load a template and then make the necessary modifications to address the particular project needs. If we take a look, we have two levels of timelines. We have the project level, which may have several different elements below that. Of course, just like any other project management tool everybody's used to, you can collapse things, you can expand things. You got your start, stop dates. All those elements are included. You can handle things like finish to finish, start to finish approaches, start to start, finish to start, of course. You can put in lead times, you can add lag times. So it's fairly full functioning, a lot of detail here. And of course, we have the visual timeline or the visual Gantt chart. Like I said, two levels. Once you get into the lower levels, you can, of course, assign resources. You can add milestones. All those are elements that are available from a Gantt chart. Resource management. There's also crews that you can assign for your resources. You can add resources, you can add equipment, the roles we talked about as well. One of the last elements we're going to discuss is the accounts receivable portion, or triggering the accounts receivable process within NetSuite. Once again, taking full advantage of everything you're used to seeing in NetSuite, from accounts receivable, managing bills, and all the financial goodies that you're used to seeing are included. What we do within FullClarity is the ability to trigger a claim associated with a project. So driving the invoicing from a claim. And from the contract record, you can create a claim, and we'll take a look at a claim here. So this is what the claim form looks like. You can look at your claim by claim type. You can see your billing type there. All these are elements that we've gone over before and are included in the claim. And then you add your claim lines. In this particular case, we're collecting a deposit. It'll list what your retainage is. It'll talk about things like the tax amount, all things we're used to seeing are necessary for operations. It'll then allow you to print a claim, and you'll see in this pop-up that there are various templates available. You see your AIA options here. All these things can be, of course, customized, but they already come preloaded in the system. And then once you go into updating a claim, it'll show the billing sequence that you want to trigger. And then finally, when you update the claim, your FullClarity, it'll give you the option to create your invoice. And as the system works in the background, I'll quickly show you what comes standard in the system. This is an AIA G7732 document, which is the compliance requirement by the Association of Architects. And you can see that it is fully ready to go. Like I said, these come straight out of the box, ready to go, but they can, of course, also be customized if you need some specific requirements for your organization, not only from a presentation standpoint, but because it is within NetSuite, there's also all the workflow and scripting options that we can augment to fit your specific process. Today, we reviewed how to manage a project, report on performance and profitability, manage accounts payable and receivable, and manage project resources for the construction industry within NetSuite using FullClarity. If your organization can benefit from process automation offered through FullClarity, please reach out to Plative. We have several implementations in the industry and have solutions to the issues you are facing every day.